and welcome to Cats Week. I'm Annalise Poorman. At the April 23rd COVID-19 press conference, Mayor John Hamilton talked about an illegal large gathering that took place last week. He said a party that occurred at an apartment on South Walnut Street had hundreds of attendees.
Yesterday, as some of you know, we had to break up a party of hundreds of people, 400 or 500 people, shoulder to shoulder, at a local apartment building on Walnut. Police were called, it was broken up, but the fact that people, and I'm working hard with many of you to make sure we do all we can to have consequences and respond appropriately, but the fact that our fellow residents chose to do that is alarming, and we need to recognize that there's really a hill in front of us. So,
Assistant Vice President at Indiana University, Kirk White, emphasized that the university is taking breach of COVID-19 restrictions seriously. He said the dean will be following up with students even though there are only a few weeks remaining of the semester.
The university continues to be serious about enforcing the university and the county gathering ordinances and regulations. We want to maintain the safety of our community. And when we learn of members of the university community that violate those, as they're reported to the Bloomington Police or to the IU Police Department, those reports are then sent on to our Dean of Students, and disciplinary action that's appropriate is taken. In fact, I just talked to the dean this morning. He said that he was going to be conducting disciplinary hearings this afternoon.
This past weekend would have been Little Five weekend, though the race was postponed. White said the Bloomington Police Department would be patrolling for students who are illegally celebrating. The Ellettsville Town Council discussed whether they would return to in-person meetings. At the April 26th meeting, Council member Scott Oldham presented the option for council members to begin meeting in person at Ellettsville Town Hall. He said he's willing to go back to in-person meetings, but it would be better to wait for COVID-19 cases to trend downward.
I'm all for returning to in-person meetings. However, that said, I'd like for us to at least wait until June 1st. And the reason is this. We're at the tail end right now, we hope, of some of the COVID spikes without singling any group of people out. So before I say this, please understand that. A lot of the people who actually attend our meetings have some years behind them. And I really don't want to take a chance with anybody inadvertently becoming exposed. While yes, we can social distance, we still want to make sure that we're offering the public the best service possible.
Council member Dan Swafford expressed his preference that council meetings have both in-person and online options. Resident Russell Ryle agreed. He added that using Zoom has made council meetings more accessible to more people.
Under the American with Disabilities Act, government is supposed to make reasonable accommodations, quote unquote. I don't know if Denise is listening. Yeah, she's here. So that people with disabilities, such as me, but people in general, can attend and participate in governmental meetings. We have demonstrated that digital attendance to meetings is a reasonable accommodation and readily available. So I would challenge denying digital participation even after you go back to public meetings.
Council member William Ellis echoed the importance of accessibility. Council member Pamela Samples moved to table the conversation until the May 10th council meeting. The motion was supported unanimously. The Bloomington Board of Park Commissioners talked about the Public Health in Parks initiative at their April 27th meeting. Health and Wellness Coordinator Jess Klein presented the partnership between Bloomington Parks and Recreation, the Monroe County Health Department, IU Health, and Centerstone. She proposed a longer program that alternated between Seminary and Switchyard parks.
So we're looking at a much longer schedule for the program this year, May through November, ending the week of Thanksgiving, so just almost to the very end of November, for 32 weeks total. We would like to hold one screening per week this year. And this is a little confusing, so I'm going to try and explain it clearly, but what our vision is that we will alternate between hosts, so either Positive Link or the health department, and we will also alternate location. So theoretically, for the first 2 weeks of the month, we'll be at Switchyard Park down by the BPD substation. And let's say week A is Positive Link at Switchyard, week B will be the health department at Switchyard, and then the second 2 weeks will be at Seminary, same pattern. So like week C will be Positive Link at Seminary, week D will be the health department at Seminary.
Klein added that the Sharps Containers Initiative will also be rolled into the Public Health in Parks program. Commissioner Kathleen Mills asked what Parks and Rec could do to reduce the number of needles found outside the containers. Klein said putting the containers in more discreet places could help. She says the stigma of having needles prevents people from disposing of them in more public places.
Last year, I've been in contact with departments all over the country, and that is definitely a common suggestion, having a more discreet way of disposing, because there's still such a huge stigma around the use of them and the fear of punishment for having one on your person, regardless of why. So I think the specific location of the containers is definitely one trend and a big part of discussion.
The park commissioners voted unanimously to approve the partnership. And we'll have more Cats Week after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of regretting what I do, just to join the crowd.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell. And you would never know it by looking at me.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
There for me, every day. Believing in me.
Showing me what's possible.
I can be strong enough to respect myself and my body.
to say I can rather than I can't,
To say no with no apology.
To be a leader.
to finish school,
To own my future.
To break the cycle.
Girls Inc. believes every girl can succeed. That's why the trained professionals of Girls Inc. are there for our girls every day, supporting, mentoring, and guiding them in a safe, girls-only environment. Building bonds that last for years and change that lasts a lifetime. Girls Inc. gives girls the tools they need to boldly face challenges, to resist peer pressure, to be the first in their families to go to college, to beat the odds. With Girls Inc. in her corner, every girl can be healthy, confident, and resilient. She'll do more than dream about her potential. She'll reach it.
With you in my corner. With you in my corner,
I will not be another statistic.
I will fight for myself.
For my future.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc. Inspiring all girls to be strong, smart, and bold.
Welcome back to Cats Week. The Bloomington City Council met on April 27th to begin discussion on the American Rescue Plan. Bloomington Mayor John Hamilton proposed 4 categories for items that need funding.
The 4 buckets that we identified were essentially, number 1, city revenue replacement. Where have we taken hits and losses in city government in our revenue in ways that will hamper our ability to provide basic city services in the years ahead? A second bucket, housing insecurity, from people experiencing homelessness to folks higher income who experience housing insecurity. what are steps we can take with this funding to improve the lives of our people many of whom are really experiencing tough times. A third bucket is thinking about economic recovery and jobs and how we help the engine of our community, the jobs and employers and employees all recover forward into the future. And then a fourth bucket, thinking about public infrastructure. What are some investments we might make that will benefit the public in long-term infrastructure investments? And
City Controller Jeff Underwood said the biggest difference between American Rescue Plan funding and previous rescue funds is that ARP funds can be used to recover lost revenue. He said the funds need to be spent by the end of 2024. Councilmember Susan Sandberg identified housing as a high priority. Councilmember Isabel Piedmont Smith suggested using funds to buy land. She said the city could build perpetually affordable housing on that land. Councilmember Steve Volan echoed the priority on affordable housing. He specified that funds could go a long way towards supporting citizens experiencing homelessness.
Could do better than shelter for most, if not all, of the people experiencing homelessness, with this money this year. So I just can't emphasize that enough. If we have to go beyond shelter, and if we were to build such a project, it would pay dividends in the community because it would allow some people to get off the street and you can't do anything without housing first. You can't, if you don't have an address, if you can't get clean, if you can't have peace of mind, you can't fight your addictions or your mental health problems.
Council member Ron Smith proposed establishing a grant to help people buy homes. Councilmember Kate Rosenbarger said that something like Bloomington Police Department's Down Payment Assistance Program could be piloted with other groups in town. Councilmember Jim Sims pointed out that some ideas would not be possible without raising wages in Bloomington.
Many of the things that we talk about won't be possible long term until we raise income levels through partnership, maybe with other entities in job creation, and maybe more and a little bit bolder partnerships or collaborations with the idea on creating jobs with higher wages that people could actually live on in Bloomington.
Mayor Hamilton ended the meeting looking forward to further ideas and conversation. Project engineer Neil Copper presented an amendment to a service agreement at the Bloomington Board of Public Works meeting on April 27th. He recommended an amendment to an agreement for consulting services for the 7th Street Bike Lane Improvement Project.
This addendum adds services for some unexpected design changes, including updating the bicycle lane geometry, updating additional curb ramps, and late changes to the maintenance of traffic plan. The addendum also removes previously expected services for Rule 5 permitting and additional public meetings.
Copper said the change would reduce fees paid to the contractor. The motion passed unanimously. The next Board of Public Works meeting is May 11th. And we will have more Cats Week after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to Cats Week. The Monroe County Community School Corporation Board of Trustees discussed online learning in the 2021 to 2022 school year. Assistant Superintendent Dr. Markay Winston expressed the need for consistency in online lessons. She said that moving forward, MCCSC would have teachers exclusively teach online or in person. She proposed other changes that would make hybrid learning easier on both teachers and students.
One of the things that the teachers said to us is they wanted to have more clearly defined expectations around what online would look like. So that one of the challenges that our teachers talked about a lot and that our students experienced is our students might have indicated that they wanted to be online, and then maybe the next week they changed their mind and they wanted to be in person, and then 3 weeks later they changed their mind again and wanted to be vice versa. And not only was that really, really difficult for our students, it was very challenging for our teachers to juggle all of that. And so as we go forward, we want to make sure that if a student and their family decide that online is the most appropriate model for them, in the event that they decide to make a change to that, we will not be having re-entry back into online.
Dr. Winston clarified that a lottery would be used to choose who qualified for kindergarten through 8th grade online learning if the school corporation received too many applications. Board member April Hennessy asked what this lottery would look like. Dr. Winston was not sure, but she said student selection would focus on equity.
We want to make sure that the representation of priority groups is equivalent to what that looks like in our natural population. So for example, if we have, I know it's going to make up this number, but if we had a 12% of students with disabilities in our overall population, then we would want to make sure that we had 12% of our seats, at least 12% of our seats available for students with disabilities in the online program as well.
Board member Brandon Schur showed concern that students may not be able to get vaccinated before the beginning of the school year. He asked Dr. Winston if families who are waiting to see if the vaccine will be available will be unable to apply for online learning.
You know, if July comes around and it doesn't look like their student is going to have any chance to get vaccinated before the school year, are they out of luck as far as not applying for the online program?
I wouldn't say that they're out of luck. I would say that we would revisit that. We would revisit at whatever point in time in the future that we need to. But for right now, in order for us to be able to plan for the new school year, we need to know as soon as possible so that we can plan accordingly in terms of staffing and supports that need to be in place.
The deadline for the first round of applications is May 14th. The next MCCSC School Board meeting will take place on Tuesday, May 18th. The Monroe County Board of Commissioners discussed county COVID-19 restrictions at its April 28th meeting. County Attorney Jeff Cockerell presented an ordinance for the Monroe County Health Department's local coronavirus restrictions. He explained that the state legislature may pass a law requiring that county government approve local health orders.
Yes, this ordinance is in reaction to the Senate Bill 5 that's been approved but not signed yet by the governor. Part of that legislation indicates that any local health order that's more stringent than the governor's executive order has to be approved by the county legislative body in this case, or it will not continue on. I believe that the governor has not signed that, but in order to avoid any gaps in the effectiveness of that local health regulation, we would like to get this approved prior to that action happening.
Commissioner Julie Thomas thanked Cockerell and the Health Department for being proactive. She expressed disappointment that the state legislature is making the pandemic a political problem.
I absolutely support
the work of our health department. And they've been smart, driven by science and data, and that's how it needs to be. This should never be politicized, yet that's apparently what the state legislature believes should happen. And I don't agree with that at all. So
the commissioners unanimously approved the ordinance. The Bloomington City Council Committee of the Whole began discussion over multiplexes in Bloomington. Development Services Manager Jackie Scanlon presented the ordinance, which would classify duplexes as permitted use. She said if more units are built in Bloomington, the overall price to live in Bloomington would drop.
We've heard a lot that this is not affordable housing. It is not affordable housing. We've not said that. This is an opportunity to potentially affect housing affordability and allow more units to be built in this town so that the overall units could possibly come down.
Council member Dave Rollo introduced an amendment that would prevent duplexes from being built in residential zones 1 through 3. He warned that people living in single-family homes would sell to investors, making a large profit and raising the cost of all homes in Bloomington. Councilmember Jim Sims questioned Rollo on where homeowners would move in Bloomington after selling their houses.
They sell that home. Now, where do they go? We know the dearth of the single family market in this town at multiple levels. My concern is, do you still foresee that there will be thousands of homes that will be sold when there's really not enough space at the next level for people who sell their homes? I guess I just want to know, where would they go? If this happens, this market price and the pressure sells all those homes, where do all of our citizens go at that point?
Well, I think.
I mean, I'm just asking.
With the profit that they would make, perhaps they buy a high-end condo downtown, or perhaps they live in the county. They've made a tremendous profit. So I can predict where they're going to go, but
I think that was kind of my question. Where would they go?
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
But the point is that it raises housing costs. I mean, I think it's fairly straightforward.
After 3 hours of public comment, Councilmember Steve Volan moved to adjourn. Council members agreed 5-3. The Bloomington City Council will continue discussion of Amendment 1 at a special City Council meeting on May 4th. The Monroe County Solid Waste Board of Directors held a joint meeting with the Citizens Advisory Committee to discuss Monroe County's solid waste management plan. At the April 29th meeting, Commissioner Joseph Winia presented a goal to add more unstaffed recycling and composting sites. Board member Tom McGlasson said that composting drop-off bins have been successful, but unstaffed recycling sites have not.
Yeah, it turns into a dumping ground, a catch-all for, the philosophy at those facilities is not when in doubt, throw it out. It's when in doubt, put it in the recycle bin.
McGlasson said the composting bins work in part because they belong to a subscription service. He said people who pay to use the Earthkeeper bins do so because they want to compost. Earthkeeper's COO Ryan Conway added that their network is only 4 sites away from being the largest in the country. The next Solid Waste District Board of Directors meeting is May 13th. And that is all for Cats Week. Thank you for joining us. For Cats and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.